Oh yes, Matt, no problem at all. We're looking forward to our coverage this morning of the free practice, and then of course going into the qualifying sessions this afternoon. Jonathan, the Manicourt circuit, resplendent in sunshine as it is yesterday, it is today as well. Good to see the forecast for sunshine, I think pretty much for the weekend, so hopefully we should be in for some good action this afternoon.
Well, we certainly should. We had plenty yesterday. I just wonder if we had a bit of a false dawn. There was so much spinning yesterday, and I think that was due to the lack of rubber, as you mentioned earlier. But yeah, absolutely looking forward to it. And it is a great place, Magny-Cours, in the sunshine. It may be a little bit desolate in that respect, but as you were mentioning earlier, not exactly a fun party town. But Nevers, very quiet, very nice, and not a bad racetrack. It's not actually been one of the most popular racetracks in the past. You know, a lot of the drivers have said, oh, it's not as exciting as it should be, and they tried too hard to make it, you know, a classic circuit. But just watching yesterday, you really got a feeling that the drivers, it is a massive challenge, and there are some very good corners. Estoril and Imola really testing the drivers to the limit, and I think in that respect it's a very exciting circuit compared to some of the other modern circuits now.
It is indeed, and particularly that Imola chicane that we were watching yesterday. It's a real Big Dipper ride, and Takuma Sato, learning the track this weekend, was saying actually visibility into some of those chicanes is quite tricky. They're approaching it very fast. Also that last little chicane as they come down towards the final corner can be tricky. We saw Sato go off. We also saw him involved in a rather strange wheel banging incident with Mika Salo in the Toyota. Hopefully none of that will occur today. We're looking inside the McLaren pit, and of course they did end up first and second fastest yesterday. David Coulthard was just a few hundredths faster than his teammate Kimi Raikkonen, around the 1:14.0 mark. Michael Schumacher was third, let's just remind you. Barrichello was fourth, ahead of Ralf Schumacher, and then we saw Eddie Irvine. So that's why we're getting a little bit excited today about the fact that Jaguar might actually be able to put in some sort of decent performance in qualifying.
I just wonder how much of a false dawn. You always mention that Friday, you know, we always talk about who runs what on Friday. McLaren, Williams always not necessarily showing their cards straight off the bat, but I just wonder how much of a false dawn for Toyota and Jaguar that was. I think we're all willing, especially Jaguar, to come forward, especially after, you know, the aero package didn't really work out at Silverstone. Do you think it's a false dawn, or do you believe they have moved forward?
Well, I hope they've moved forward, but of course it does depend on how much fuel they were running on Friday. There's no doubt that the tyres were the advantage. There was an advantage with the tyres over Bridgestone, so it is quite possible that they were running the car light, and if that's the case, of course, when it comes to qualifying today, they might well end up down at the bottom end of the top 20, so we'll just have to see what happens. Well, Mika Salo we mentioned, he did a good job yesterday as well, 7th fastest, and Nick Damon has caught up with the Finn.
Mika Salo, very mixed session. You started it with the coming together to Takuma Sato, put in a great time for 7th, then had an engine blow, so everything in one day, really.
Yeah, it was a busy day for mechanics especially, and we didn't have a great day. We didn't have so much time to work on the car, and we still struggled a lot with the traction and oversteer, but hopefully now we have a better day and I don't come across Sato again. So.
How are you feeling about the tyres? It seems to be that the Michelin have got an advantage over Bridgestone here.
I think that's the case again, yeah. It's, Michelin's done a good job with the dry tyres, and we seem to have advantage every circuit now, and it's only shame that the Ferrari is so quick that it doesn't matter what tyres they own, they're quick anyway. But hotter it gets, better it is for Michelin.
Looking forward to qualifying. Are you pretty much confident because of that you'll make the top 10, no worries?
It's always difficult. It's very tight, and Magny-Cours is always very tight on qualifying, and 1/10 can drop you a few places down, so everything has to be perfect for qualifying.
Mika, thanks a lot.
Well, interesting comments from Mika Salo. We had only 2 out of the top 11 yesterday were on Bridgestone tyres. That shows you how strong the Michelin, and really a complete reversal of what we saw on that wet Friday at Silverstone, when only 4 out of the top 11 were on Michelin, where the intermediate Bridgestone tyre was so stunning on that Friday, and as it turned out in the race itself. So a bit of a reversal, and pretty much down to the weather conditions as much as anything. Lovely blue sky here at Manicourt, and with the track temperatures due to climb as we go through today, it's surely going to benefit Michelin on this occasion as we see what they can do throughout the course of this qualifying session. So just down behind the pits, Luciano Berti, the test driver for Ferrari. And Ferrari, of course, looking to make history possibly this weekend. Michael Schumacher looking to wrap up the championship in the shortest possible time in the modern championship. We'll just have to see whether he's going to be able to achieve that or whether he's going to save that for the next race, the German Grand Prix next week. And there, of course, is his teammate, Rubens Barrichello. Well, we've been talking about Jaguar. We were yet to see whether they're going to perform as hoped in qualifying this afternoon. Perhaps one man who can tell us a little bit more is the man who's in charge of the team on the day-by-day basis, and that's Günther Steiner.
Günther Steiner, yesterday, a good day.
A better day, but we have to see today. I mean, the tyres helped a lot yesterday, so we see what the day brings today.
Obviously, some of the problems at Silverstone were general handling and balance. Is the car now more consistent?
The driver seems to think it's more consistent and they can understand it better, but we will see only this afternoon how good a grip of it we have got.
Is it simply a case of making a step in testing in Monza that has translated completely to Magny-Cours?
For sure, it was the testing which we did in Monza which helped us to understand the car better, and as you know, we didn't have a lot of testing before Silverstone, so that was our biggest disadvantage. But we have to see still here. I'm continuing to say I'm not sure how good it will be because I'm getting pessimistic.
Günther, thank you very much.
So, well, we shall see what happens with that Jaguar team. Now, we're in the BAR Honda team here, and Jacques Villeneuve, not particularly happy yesterday, ended up down in 17th place, so it's fairly clear, Jonathan, that they might have had some highlights at Silverstone last week. It's going to be tougher this time.
Yeah, I think they've got their head screwed on, listening to David Richards in the press conference yesterday, and of course listening to the comments in the press releases by Jack and by Olivier. They're not under any aspirations that it's all going to go swimmingly well again here after Silverstone. I think the weather played a big part there, but no question about it, they are moving forward, and you heard Peter there saying they've got modifications there, and Honda obviously pushing forward and solidifying their position, and so I think bit by bit, and I'm just, I'm amazed actually at the tenacity of Jacques Villeneuve for sticking with it. I know he's a part owner of the team and has sort of invested a lot of time and energy in it, but I have to say, for a driver of his quality, a world champion, he stuck with it, and I think hopefully he'll get the dividends eventually.
Yeah, I think so, and the big question is, will they do the deal, and will he stay there for another couple of years? That's looking more likely. We're getting ready for the start of this session, just a few seconds away from the pit lane being opened. There is Takuma Sato, had that little incident with Mika Salo yesterday, and then bounced off onto the gravel on the exit of the Estoril corner, but no real damage done. He just ripped off a couple of the barge boards, ended up 15th fastest, learning a track again, although he had been here just briefly in one of the school cars, I think, just to get an idea of the layout, but finding it somewhat different in the Formula One car. Here's Olivier Panis. We talked about him being the only Frenchman in the French Grand Prix this weekend. Just an interesting note, though, there was a rapid Frenchman, a new boy, Sébastien Bourdais, tested for arrows in the interval between Silverstone and this Grand Prix, and by all accounts, Sébastien Bourdais did a pretty good job. Yeah,
I heard Tom Walkinshaw talking about him in the press conference, saying exactly that. Very impressed with him, and said they've been watching him for quite a few months now, and that is impressive news. It's impressive also that Arrows are going testing and testing new drivers under the circumstances, so obviously Tom Walkinshaw believes that things are moving hopefully in the right direction for them as well.
Now, we've still got to see, of course, whether they come out of the pits.
Yes, that's the big question.
Yeah, Arrows did no running whatsoever yesterday. It was a similar situation to Silverstone. Now, at Silverstone, they missed out on a wet day on Friday. Missing out yesterday, I don't think actually will hurt them too much. This track changes so much, according to temperature, according to how much rubber's down, that they probably won't lose much by not having gained some data. But the question is, are we going to see them out this morning? Tom said yesterday, we definitely will see them out today. There he is, just walking down behind the pits right now. A quick nod. I should think that the cars will be out there.
Yeah, I hope so, and I'm a bit of a sat when it comes to Arrows. I've sort of followed them for so long now, and of course they hadn't got that victory. They've come so close with Damon Hill, of course, just one lap away, and you just sort of hope that they will get there, because they're triers, and in this world, to last as long as they have without being right up there every time and just being in the midfield almost for 20 years, they almost deserve a little bit of a break.
Absolutely, yes, that's right. Michael Schumacher making his way down the back of the paddock. It's quite a long way from where the hospitality buses are down towards the Ferrari pit, so he's taken full advantage of the scooter to make his way down. We're taking a look at on track now as Olivier Panis makes his way round. As we heard earlier on, plenty of experience here from his days driving for French teams in the past. Qualified in third place for this Grand Prix in the same year that this man, Barrichello, took pole, and that was driving the Stewart, as it was then, not Jaguar then, it was Stewart, of course, Stewart Grand Prix, and it was a very impressive pole in wet conditions, and they chose exactly the right moment to go out onto the track, which was early on, and the rain just got heavier and heavier, and some of the heavy hitters like Ferrari and McLaren basically just mistimed it. So Barrichello took pole on that occasion. Today he'll be in the battle, I'm sure, having out-qualified Michael this year, but this is the man to beat in qualifying, because he's had a tremendous run of qualifying sessions going, and he's going to try and make it 5 poles in a row this weekend.
Yeah, cool as a cucumber. Juan Pablo is just awesome. And I mean, we were talking about that off yesterday and his little giggle. I mean, that says it all. Patrick Head must be pulling his hair out just watching this kid. But, you know, I mean, he is that cool. I think he is, you know, another Schumacher in the making in that respect. I know everybody said it all along, but that's just a good example. You know, he's got the confidence with the car that he doesn't let things like that sort of thing worrying him. It is only Friday, and it's business as usual this morning. And you're right, I think this is the man to watch, although outside bet Ralf Schumacher as well. Yeah,
Ralf was on pole here last year, of course, and that's his only pole to date, so we'll have to wait and see what the German can do. But as you say, Montoya looked relaxed. He wasn't actually that happy with the handling of the car. He did say they were struggling to get the balance. And there are, as ever, 2 compounds of tyre from both Michelin and Goodyear, and there's a new set of tyres on board Coulthard's car by the looks of things as he heads down the pit lane. And in fact, looking at the comments made afterwards by most of the teams, it looks as though both Bridgestone and Michelin users still sort of working out which tyres to use. Ferrari said it wasn't a particularly clear-cut decision on the Bridgestone, and Dupasquier at Michelin saying, well, their teams might well end up with different choice of compounds, and as we've heard, perhaps McLaren going for the softer tyre and Williams going for the harder tyre, so there'll be a bit of a mix and match this time, I think.
Well, I think a lot will depend on the weather, and we heard Peter saying that you know, he's hopeful that the weather will be perfect like it has been for the last 2 days, like this again. But I just wonder, it does quickly here. The winds blow pretty hard, and you can get a quick change of weather and temperature, which will affect the tyres, obviously, and that is a concern, depending on which you wanted to go for, the softer or the harder. I think Montoya, what he was saying yesterday, Montoya decided to go with the harder, you know, last year, in the idea that he may not get the grid position, but he'll be, you know, all right for the race.
Yes, and it worked quite well for him in the early stages of last year's race. We're just riding with David Coulthard, fastest yesterday, the winner of this Grand Prix back in 2000, and one of his best ever races. Now, just with that helmet cam, getting a quick view into the visor, but again running a fairly strongly tinted visor. You have to do that with the bright sunshine here at Manicourt. He's coming around the latter part of the lap. Now this chicane that he's coming down to, we saw 1 or 2 incidents here yesterday. Villeneuve, for example, went off into the gravel out there, so did Fisichella. It's that tricky sort of corner, and it's right at the end of the lap, so it really can mess up your attempts in qualifying.
Yeah, it's one of those corners that it's a strange corner because you're coming very fast at it. It doesn't do you any advantages to get through it that quickly. In fact, actually, there's more chances that you'll get it wrong, as we saw with Michael yesterday. And it's just not one of those corners. You can't really attack it that hard. If you do, you can come a cropper. We saw Montoya attack it and actually use the back of the car to spin him round and actually do the turning for him. So that's one way, but it's a risky way.
Well, talking to Ferrari on the emails, do you think the championship will be decided here? Well, we're not trying to think about it, is their reply. I'm sure they are thinking about it, but, you know, they've just got to concentrate on doing what they do so well, and that is every session they have their plan and they stick to their plan and go through the weekend, and if it all goes accordingly, they hope to end up with a victory at the end of it. That's really the way the Ferrari system works. They plan everything, they prepare everything, they practice everything, and that's really part of the reason they've been so dominant this season. Montoya not in the car at the moment. Patrick Head just discussing things with him. Down at the Renault pit yesterday, Jenson ended up 9th fastest. Jarno Trulli didn't have a very good day because he spun at the beginning of the second free practice session, lost valuable data gathering time. Nick Damon has caught up with Pat Simmons at Renault.
Pat Simmons, we think we spotted something a bit odd about the cars yesterday. On the spare car, we believe on the track yesterday, you had different side pod wing solutions on either side. Why was that?
Yeah, it's true. We have asymmetric cooling on the car, and in order to maximise the aerodynamic efficiency for the different cooling configurations, it requires different exits, which is not uncommon on cars, but ours are maybe a little bit more visually different than some.
Overall, though, how did the day go for Renault yesterday?
It was a difficult day. Circuit was very green. We expect this circuit to be quite slippery, particularly on the first day, and particularly as temperatures come up. But it really was hard yesterday. It was difficult to make tyre decisions. It was difficult to really experiment with the car because the track was changing. So it was hard work, but I think we got most done that we aimed to do.
Pat, thanks a lot.
So that's Pat Symonds, engineering director at Renault, and of course being Renault, being on French territory here, it's a very important weekend for them. 5 times Renault took pole for the French Grand Prix in their former existence as a Formula 1. Last was back in 1984, so I don't think pole position's going to be quite possible for them here today, though, Jonathan.
No, I don't think so. And in the past, Renault have always done something a little bit special for the French Grand Prix. It's just their way. And asked yesterday whether they'd be doing the same thing, and they said no, it's business as usual. We don't do that anymore. And I think the team has changed somewhat since those days when they did bring out a special engine or some new parts, especially for this French Grand Prix. I don't think they see themselves quite as French, although they are based just down the road, of course.
Well, they're down at the Arrows pits. There seem to be much action, sadly. No drivers prepared sitting in cars, and that's a bit of a concern. Of course, they don't have to be out in this free practice session. Qualifying coming up later. Looks as though they've been making some repairs to the track surface in the pit lane, this is. Now, this is outside McLaren. They were having problems yesterday.
Yeah, this sabotage story, I love this. I mean, Dave Ryan going down the pit lane saying that there's definitely a problem with the track there, and I think that's just great sabotage by one of the other teams there to put some obviously nasty stuff down there to make sure that McLaren can't stop properly. Good effort.
Well, hopefully they've got it sorted out now, and he was saying it was a safety issue as much as anything. It was actually right on the spot, wasn't it, where the cars come in on their pit stop, so not a great idea when you're coming in, even on the speed limit. It's still hurtling to halt very quickly indeed there, so good to see they've managed to make some repairs. Takuma Sato on track then. Only a couple of cars out there at the moment. Alex Young and Takuma Sato, the only two that we can see on track at the moment. And nobody has completed a flying lap in this session so far. So Takuma's likely to set the initial pace here as he just gets to grips into the 180 degree. Oh, and that's where we saw quite a lot of spins yesterday. He actually held it, but for a moment looked like he was going to join the list.
Yeah, Barrichello, one of them as well yesterday, and it is a problem, seems to be. A lot of people come through the Nürburgring and really come too fast out of there and just can't stop, effectively. And, Sato, again, having a bit of a problem there, but it's early on so far.
Well, as we're watching Sato, Peter Winter's got the chance to catch up with BMW's engine man, Mario Tyson.
Well, I have indeed, Ben. One of the problems is they've just started up Montoya's car. I think it's very brief. Mario, sound all right, the engine then?
Pardon?
Did the engine sound all right then?
Yeah, so far they do, yeah.
What are the drivers saying about the track this morning so far?
No response yet. They have just done the installation lab, and you cannot say anything just before having gone quick.
Interesting weekend. It's beginning to look. The Michelin Bridgestone balance looks very close here.
Yeah, at least for short runs, 1-2 laps. That's what we saw yesterday. I hope we'll see the same today in qualifying, but race performance is something different.
Now, yesterday we saw Juan Pablo have a massive spin on the quick corner there, and afterwards Patrick Head suggested that the car bottomed out at that point, which caused the rear just to go. But that was quite strange, bearing in mind how smooth this circuit is. In fact, are you bottoming here?
Sorry, I don't know. That's really something Patrick has taken care of.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mario. I thought I'd ask you the question anyway. Thank you.
Thanks.
So we'll see whether they can repeat their pole position from last year. Just listening to Mark Webber.
Okay, Mark, understood.
On the team radio there. And he was going fairly slowly. We saw Alex Young in the meantime. He had a little bit of an off at that last chicane, although he just went across the smooth part of extra runoff that they've put in there. So hopefully no problems. But Mark Webber making his way back into the pits. There's team boss Paul Stoddart, a little concerned. They had 1 or 2 little problems yesterday, although Webber did a good job and was 18th fastest yesterday, literally just 400th slower than Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR Honda. So was a good effort.
Yeah, Webber's looking good in that car, and just listening to the radio yesterday, very cool, calm and collected at all times, and I think he's got what it takes, and big future ahead of this young man, and I think he's comfortable. I think he's comfortable in Formula One, and that says a lot. Not an easy environment, especially when you're a youngster starting out, and I know he's not that young, but when you're starting out and you're up against this man, you've got to feel comfortable straight away, and I think that's what Alex is struggling with. Alex Young, his teammate, he's just not really got as comfortable yet as Mark Webber.
No, that's true, and of course Young looking to get into the race at all here today, having failed to qualify at Silverstone. Michael looks like he's still waking up, doesn't he, this morning? He's not bothered about getting out there just yet, and wiping the sleep from his eyes, and quite content to let the likes of Sato, Jung, Webber and Irvine, as it is now, go out and clean the track up a bit?
Yeah, get the dust away, put a bit more rubber down, wait for the sun to get a little bit warmer, and then put on a pole lap.
Absolutely, yes, very likely. And of course, as you say, with the temperature coming up, the track does change. It does change the handling of the cars. There's not much point in trying to set the car up to handle perfectly at nearly 9:15 in the morning French time, because when it comes to 1 o'clock in time for qualifying, you find the car behaves completely differently. Irvine then, an important day for Jaguar. They obviously didn't make the progress that they had hoped at Silverstone, but there were extenuating circumstances, the weather mainly. Well, they haven't got that excuse here this weekend, and if things don't start to come a little better, it's going to put the pressure even more on this man, Niki Lauda, just sitting down on the right-hand side there, and everybody in that Jaguar pit closely watching what Irvine does here today.
Yeah, you get the feeling, though, that Nicky's the kind of guy that can take that kind of pressure. Obviously, as a driver, he's done it. And with all the bad press that they've had, and quite rightly so, really, because the team just hasn't performed, the R3 just hasn't been there. There were such great aspirations at the launch and pre-season, and they just haven't followed through with it. And I think the reasons are now becoming clearer and clearer. But if anybody's going to take the pressure, it'll be Nicky. And it was interesting what Peter said about motivated drivers. I think Pedro's fairly motivated, and I wonder if Eddie will hang around. But it would be good to see two young guns at Jaguar really pushing this team forward.
Yes, I'm sure there will be changes there. It's just a question of whom. Great shot as they turn into that Grand Courbe, and as we saw earlier on in the programme, watching the cameras being positioned around the circuit. And I think that camera particularly showing the speed as they go into that corner. That was the bend that Montoya went off at yesterday, and indeed one of the fastest corners on the track. Irvine himself making his way around the latter part of the lap. He seems to have be taking it reasonably steady. This is up through the Imola chicane up towards Chateau d'Eau, the right-hander, and looks to me as though he could well be heading in at the end of this lap. He is fastest in this session, however, with a fairly early part of the session completed. Irvine fastest, Sato is second. Now, I believe we've got the chance to speak to David Richards. David, can you hear us all right?
Yes, loud and clear.
Excellent. Well, yesterday was a little bit of a struggle, it looked. Looks as though the Bridgestone users like yourselves perhaps finding the Michelin tyres a little stronger here at Magny-Cours. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. Magny-Cours, Michelin's home circuit, they've done an awful lot of testing work here, and they've always been very strong here. But no, I think that Michelin's will have a marginal advantage this weekend, but let's wait and see what happens in qualifying today.
Now, what's happening about the engines today? Because are you starting with one engine in the free practice and then changing engines actually between sessions for the qualifying?
No, Olivier's got the engine in now, so we can just see how it performs first thing this morning, and we can have any chance to sort of tune out any niggles in it, and then we will change and put a fresh engine in for Jacques before the qualifying.
How much of an advantage are you expecting to get from that engine?
Well, looking on the faces of Honda colleagues here, they're looking fairly optimistic.
Well, that's good news. We shall look forward to see how they get on in the qualifying session this afternoon. Just one other quick point there, David. We noticed that Anthony Davidson has been doing quite a lot of testing with you recently, and there's also talk of him perhaps getting a test drive in the United States. What are your impressions of Anthony so far this year, the work that he's been doing with you?
No, Anthony's been doing an exceptionally good job for us, and he actually did do the test this week. It's a sister team in the States there with British American Cool Racing in America, and he's come out extremely well after the test. I haven't spoken to him personally, but I spoke to his manager yesterday, and looking quite positive for next year, I'd say.
Great, well that's good to hear. Thank you for joining us this morning, and good luck with the qualifying this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Now back into the action here. Eddie Irvine fastest, but Mika Salo goes second fastest in the Toyota, just 0.4 of a second between them. Again, both on the Michelin tyre, remember, and Salo we heard from earlier on, hoping that he won't suffer any of the engine problems that he had yesterday. Little conversation here between Jean Todt and Michael Schumacher, but still no hurry to go out, and indeed only 8 cars have set a time so far in this session. There is Juan Pablo Montoya's fiancée, Connie Fradel, making her way down the back of the paddock. Her man is on track, there he is, and he's just moved up to 8th, although this is his first flying lap.
Yeah, Montoya out there and looking very strong, getting a bit twitchy. Near the end of Estoril and down towards Adelaide yet again.
Yeah, maximum speeds we've got to keep an eye on down here. 2.99 so far for Mika Salo. We saw speeds up to about 3.09 from Barrichello, I think it was, who had the highest speed trap figure yesterday. So that's about 193 miles per hour or so. That is the fastest section of the track as they head down towards the Adelaide hairpin. And then, of course, it's hard on the brakes, sort of 4G of braking force, massive braking force. The sort of braking force that will take the tears out of your tear ducts and splat them onto the visor if you've got a bit of water in your eyes, particularly in the early morning here.
Thanks for that, Ben. Very graphic.
The drivers have told me that in the past. It always seems astonishing to me that they can have G-forces that are that high that will actually be able to do that.
Well, one man experiencing that at the moment. Alex Young up to 6th place. Good to see. The birthday boy, 26 years old today. And good to see he's starting to make some inroads now into the times that he was making yesterday.
Yes, Montoya's gone fastest. Look at that. So a 14.7, his first flying lap. Teammate Ralf Schumacher goes second fastest, just a tenth slower. Well, less than a tenth, as you see, half a tenth slower. So the two Williams, first out of the heavy hitters, it has to be said. We haven't seen McLaren set times yet. We haven't seen Ferrari set any times. But Williams starting off their day accordingly. The fastest time yesterday was a 1 minute 14.0. So they're about 3/4 of a second off that at the moment. Well, we might not have seen some of the heavy hitters on track, but we also have not seen the Arrows on track. And I think, Peter, you're down by that Arrows garage now.
Yes, I am indeed. Very frustrating here. The boys standing around, the cars looking fantastic. I'm sure they'd go very, very well here. Chatted to Tom Walkinshaw last night, and a very difficult situation for him because he has managed to get more money from Red Bull for his team, one of his prime sponsors. But in the meantime, there have been several groups trying to come in and buy this team from Tom. And of course, it's one thing to convince shareholders that you can buy a team and you can fund it. It's quite another to prove that you can do that. And the problem Tom has got, I gather, is that some of these potential groups that think they can take the team over are saying yes, and we can run the team for 5 years, but there's no evidence that they can do that. And Tom is fighting hard, obviously, to keep control because he has just as much chance of keeping this team alive over the next 5 years as any potential new buyer. So that's what's going on. Tom is trying to fend off, I think, attempts from other sources to buy the team. He's not a happy man at the moment, I have to say, which is why he's not actually talking to anybody, really. But I did have sight of a letter from accountants who had been through all the TWR books saying that everything appeared to be completely in order. There was no attempt to try to sell shares at anything other than full market value, and there was no reason why business shouldn't continue as normal. So what we're seeing here, I think, is quite a lot of avarice on the part of people on the outside thinking, yes, there's a Formula One team, I'll have it, without really thinking the problem through.
Complicated situation, and it's one that's going to run and run, obviously. The end result is the sadness of not seeing the cars out there. Whatever is going on behind the scenes, we want to see Frentzen out there, we want to see Bernaldi out there, and for everybody who works at Arrows, all that hard work that they've put in throughout this year and come up with a great car, it's just so disappointing, Jonathan, not to see it out there.
Yeah, and you know...
And I think there's one... I was going to say, there's one other end result, apart from wanting to see the cars out.
Oh, well, we seem to...
Well, we lost him there, but never mind. Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, probably a similar thing. You know, the climate at the moment, you know, we need as many of the cars out there. We need the full complement out there. There's no question about that. And it is a real shame to not see them out, especially when they're there, prepared to go. And it really is a case of literally sorting out business rather than worrying about whether they can actually run a race team. And obviously, there are interests there, and Peter's just mentioned them. They need to sort it out quicker than they are.
That's right. Well, I'm sure they're trying. Of course, it's all wrapped up in legalese, and perhaps they can't do what they would like. Look at Ralf Schumacher, a little bit of a lock-up there, nothing too dramatic, as he follows Olivier Panis through the 180-degree corner. That's what it's called, the 180-degree, so it's not just its nature, it actually is called that as we come up towards Chateau d'Eau. Panis not going that quickly at the moment, but of course times at this point of the day, nothing much to worry about. He moves out of the way. Rev counter on the left-hand side of the picture, you can see there, and the BMW V10 working hard. Coming down into this last corner, Montoya still fastest at the moment. This is a goodish lap, though, from Ralf, and indeed it's good enough to go, will keep his second place, just a fraction outside the fastest so far. But Ralf and everybody else finding that it's that first lap on a set of tyres that really is the quick one. After that, the tyre performance goes away very, very quickly. So this afternoon in qualifying, there'll be one-lap wonders, and then straight back into the pits, I think. A bit of work going on Mark Webber's car, so a lot of concern here, obviously. It doesn't look as though that's running as it should do. Meanwhile, Eddie's back into the pits, third fastest currently in the Jaguar. De La Rose has been out. He's completed some 6 laps, but still we haven't seen the likes of Button, Raikkonen, Felipe Massa, Coulthard, Barrichello, Michael Schumacher. None of those guys have yet set a time.
Yeah, early days yet, but all important, the qualifying session ahead. As we mentioned, the temperatures will be different this afternoon. And Ben, you know, this circuit more than any, I know it's a fast first corner and second corner to that extent, but really it's so tight here. Adelaide, one of the few places really get a good run in terms of overtaking. So therefore, let's say compared to Silverstone, a lot more important where you are on the grid come Sunday.
It is important, yeah. Qualifying is crucial here, and I don't think if Barrichello had started from the back as he did at Silverstone, he would find it quite so easy to make his way up to second place as he did a couple of weeks ago. Michael Schumacher now is preparing, however, to come back out. They've got a new aerodynamic package yet again on the Ferrari, still been developing this car, although Ross Brawn was telling us yesterday that yes, most of the effort now will switch from this car into the new car. But it's amazing how Ferrari have continued to develop this car, make it better and better, and it's already the class of the field. But Michael Schumacher will have a bit of a battle on his hands today by the looks of things in qualifying, just depending on which tyre they choose to use from the 2 Bridgestones they have available.
Yeah, you just wonder with the way that things are going at Ferrari, as they started this year. You know, they literally started this year with last year's car in a position where they could overlap at any point, and they were already dominant at the beginning of this season with the old car, and you could almost get to a situation this year if they keep slightly developing this car and obviously developing the new car, that they could be in a similar situation next year.
Absolutely. Well, it's up to everyone else to try and stop them, and this team closest so far, Juan Pablo Montoya, Williams, and they've also been using some new aerodynamics. They've been trying to follow the line that Ferrari have developed, and that's with very close-fitting bodywork around the rear of the car, trying to tidy up the airflow around the back. And Williams have come up with some very nice detailed engineering themselves to follow the sort of standards that have been set by Ferrari with that 2002 car. Montoya in then, and currently the fastest man in this session on a 1 minute 14.3, still about 0.3 of a second off the fastest yesterday that was set by David Coulthard. Now here comes Michael. So the Ferrari does take to the track, presumably now for some timed runs as opposed to just the installation lap which he completed a little earlier on. Absolutely stunning conditions, the temperature climbing fairly quickly now, and the team's therefore adapting the cars accordingly. Jenson Button also on track, as you can see, in the Renault. Had a good day yesterday. He said he was pretty satisfied with the work that they did and the work that they managed to achieve, and of course his workload increased by the fact that Jarno Trulli went off and not getting in the sort of laps that they needed to work out setup. And the Renault engine man actually said, well, we're a bit disappointed that Jarno went off so early yesterday.
Oh, and a big lock up there.
Yes, Jenson's trying quite hard, isn't he? He's already right on the limit. Here's the view from that mirror cam, looking across into the cockpit as you ride with Jenson Button.
Well, it's that time of the year for him. You've heard all the gossip that he may not be staying at Renault, and you heard just Peter earlier saying that maybe not that interested in going to Jaguar. He had a little visit to Hinwald, to the Sauber factory. Said he was going to get chocolates.
That was a
Fair
great
enough.
line. It's a good line, wasn't it? He'd run out of chocolates, so he had to go to Switzerland.
It's a good excuse.
But there's no doubt Button's career is, the future career for Button is to be determined over the next few days. I noticed he reckons that he's decided where he's going. He's not telling anybody yet, but it does sound as though he's going somewhere, and we do expect, of course, that Fernando Alonso will be announced as a Renault driver. May not be this weekend, although some people expect it to be announced by this man, Flavio Briatore. Alonso is here again. He's been putting in more impressive test performances for the team this year, and the Spaniard, highly rated by Flavio Briatore, sees him presumably as the future of this Renault Formula One project.
But going back to Jenson, I know he's got contracts elsewhere, and that's fine, and Flavio mentioned that in his interview, but what has he done so badly, Jenson, in that respect? I mean, I can't see him as a young man developing and being thrown in as quickly as he was. I don't think he's done too much wrong, has he?
No, he hasn't done anything. And I think this year particularly he's been very, very strong indeed. And perhaps the decision really goes back to last year, which was disappointing for him. I think he turned it around massively this season. He's been very, very good in both qualifying and in the races. But it's just perhaps timing, again, commercial pressures perhaps, and Briatore feeling that he wants to get Alonso out in a Grand Prix car. Now let's just concentrate on what Michael's up to here, because he's pushing hard. He's come right up behind the Jaguar of Eddie Irvine and managed to go past fairly quickly. Now watch him through this quick chicane. This is so impressive. Very quick, and look how much he's up on the split time. 6/10 up on Montoya's time, so we're going to see Bridgestone, Ferrari and Michael Schumacher go to the top of the timesheets by quite a margin here, and he might go quicker than anyone did yesterday.
This is a very quick lap by Michael, and you must think, oh, 1:13.2, that is superb. And he must have lost a couple of tenths behind Irvine.
He must have done, and yet he's only 0.3 of a second outside last year's pole position. Good lap here from Raikkonen as well, the second man to get into the 1-minute 13s. So Ferrari and McLaren just waiting their time, and now that they've come out, they immediately establish the pace. Ferrari ahead of McLaren by about 0.4 of a second. Coulthard not quite so quick, a 1:14.2. That puts him third fastest. And I think McLaren could be in very good shape here today. Remember, he did qualify on second position at Monaco. Very different kind of track, of course, but in these high temperatures and with the right tyre, the McLaren has shown it can be quick, and the chassis is a good one, we know that, and this track responds to a decent chassis.
Get a really good view here, just how smooth this track is compared to literally any of the other tracks on the Formula One calendar. Look how smooth this track is, and that has been a problem because of the grip. Obviously, the adhesion isn't as good, but you can really see from this suspension shot just how smooth it is.
They actually run the cars very stiffly here because of that smooth surface, and so you can really see just how little suspension movement there is. As you say, Jonathan, there's not much reaction. You can see the little bit of reaction when he just touches the curb, but otherwise hardly any movement is there in that.
Superb to watch, great camera angles, and there he is coming through the last part of the lap. One more corner, and then back he goes.
There he is, out of that last right-hander, past the pits he comes now, past his pit board. Now listen here. Oh, we just switch off for a second there, flat out through that left-hander at about 165, 170 miles an hour.
It's going to be interesting listening to that. I am going to take a listen with yourself on that, because yesterday, as you said, it was so slippy that people weren't as flat as they usually are through there, and I think we'll see the times go up as people start to get quicker and quicker through there.
Yes, one or two drivers seem to be struggling. I think hopefully with a bit more grip today available, more rubber down, it shouldn't be a problem. This is the section we're talking about. Listen up here. Yeah,
sounded pretty on song to me.
That sounded great. I love the sound you get from that camera as the Ferrari goes past. It just wails away, doesn't it? It's a fantastic sound going through into that first corner. Barrichello continuing round, and be a lap to watch, although he's just completed a lap 1:14.3. That's put him fifth fastest as we're watching Felipe Massa. And he's again learning a new track, but the team is so impressed with the way that this young lad learns circuits. They reckon that within 5 laps he's right on it. And once again yesterday he was actually faster than his teammate Nick Heidfeld. Heidfeld's done plenty of laps here in the past, and Massa was getting his first acquaintance with it.
Yeah, he looked very quick early on, didn't he? And that was just Friday, and a long way to go yet. And he just improving by the minute. Quick look at Patrick Head. Well, that's a fairly normal expression from Patrick.
Yeah, not giving a lot away, but well,
he never looks happy to be there, but I know he is.
He is, of course, really. But he's always thinking, always concentrating, looking at trying to find the advantage, where they can go better. And we've seen them turn it around so much in races in the past over many, many years. They've had great success here at Magny-Cours in particular over the years, particularly when they first came to this track. The Grand Prix was first run here back in '91, and Nigel Mansell took pole position and the first victory, and they actually had a run of 3 wins for Williams in those first years of Magny-Cours. 2 for Nigel Mansell, 1 for Alain Prost, so it's brought them some happy memories. Pole last year, but they could certainly do with a victory and just stem the tide a little bit for Ferrari before they go off to the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim next week.
Yeah.
as quickly as they would like. Montoya across the line, a 14.4 on that last lap as he puts together a little run on his Michelin tyres. Just watching him here, coming out of Estoril. That was interesting. You could see a little bit of oversteer just in the middle of the corner. He had to wind the lock off. Only the best drivers can deal with oversteer in a fast corner like that. And he might want to dial it out, or he might want to keep it in for qualifying. Down to the hairpin. Oh, he overshot that a bit. Far too quick into the hairpin there, but he manages to sort it out. And now accelerating back up to speed. Now the Nürburgring chicane. Right, then left, and now hard on the brakes. And try and keep it tidy.
Very quick through that section.
Neat and tidy there too. He didn't lock up like we've seen a number of drivers do. Revs up to about 18,500 revs per minute on the BMW engine as he changes up. Yeah, that was quick through there as well, but again, very tidy. And the car seems to be giving him just that little bit more feeling compared to yesterday. Yesterday he was a bit all over the place. Today it does look tidier.
Yep, definitely. And a little bit squirrely out of there. But
yeah, he just a bit of understeer in the middle of the corner there. 14.6, so very consistent set of laps that he's putting together. And it's just a question of whether he's going to get the extra speed in qualifying. So Michael Schumacher's watching that. He knows that for that pole position battle, Montoya is likely to be the one.
Yep, cool as you like, Michael. Only done 4 laps so far, and he's just waiting his time. 8 minutes, 40 seconds left of this session. And Michael leads the times, 1:13.201. He set early on. It was a blistering lap, and he had Eddie Irvine to get out the way before he could set that lap. Jenson Button in 7th at the moment. Massa 9th, we've mentioned him. Fisichella in 10th. Sato Panis, Villeneuve. And obviously the Toyotas haven't shone as much as they did yesterday, 16th and 17th at the moment.
Yeah, they've got some work to do, but it's early days, isn't it? What we're going to see with just 8 minutes to go or so in this of free practice, they're still running with a fair bit of fuel in. Remember, they haven't pumped the fuel out. They're not really going for a qualifying time yet. We hope to see that towards the end of the next session. There's a half-an-hour interval, and then the next 45-minute session. Towards the end of that's when we expect to see some pretty rapid qualifying-like laps being set, and that might give us a slightly clearer picture of what we'll see in the session this afternoon. An absolutely crucial session, as you say, because overtaking is difficult here. And the French Grand Prix historically has been won nearly half of its running by the man on pole position. Some 23 out of 51 Grand Prix in France have been won from pole. But I have to say, here at Manicourt, it hasn't often been won from pole position. Look at Panis through there. That looked pretty impressive, I have to say. The BAR Honda giving him lots of confidence through that section of the track. That was stuff. He's 14th at the moment, but this is going to be an improving lap for the Frenchman. And he's got the new engine, remember. David Richards was telling us earlier on in this that they've got the new engine in this car, and he goes 9th fastest, so that's great. 14.7. And there is David Richards. We spoke to him earlier when he was on the pit wall. I should think he'll be quite pleased about that.
Yeah, I would have thought Villeneuve will be keeping a watchful eye as well on how his teammate gets on, because likewise he'll be getting that new engine later in the day.
Yes, and David Richards saying that the Honda people look pretty excited about it, so their normal inscrutability obviously changing.
Talking of Honda, what about how Jordan will go? Will they have a new qualifying engine? They haven't decided that yet.
No, I think they probably will have access to the engines themselves for the qualifying session this afternoon, so they'll be looking forward to it. Whether either car's got it in this morning, I do not know, and hopefully we might get a chance to find that out a little bit later on. Barrichello, meanwhile, is 5th fastest at the moment. Let's see whether this lap is going to be any improvement for him. I don't think it's likely to be, because not on a new set of tyres. Well, a 13.503, yes, that is an improvement. He goes 2nd fastest, in fact. So the two Ferraris, where we're accustomed to seeing them, 1 and 2. 3rd place for Raikkonen, 4th for Coulthard. Then it's Montoya and Ralph. So we've got team orders now, with 2x2x2 down to Jenson Button in 7th. Now, where's Jarno Trulli?
Salo about to do another lap.
Trulli not as far up. He's just come in 13th, he is in at the moment. And Salo, as you say, going on to another lap here. Currently, Mika Salo is down in 16th place, just ahead of his teammate Alan McNish. We're looking into the Toyota garage. Now, they tested here at Manicourt last year. Trying to listen up to Alan and the team. Getting him ready to out. Tyre blanket still on for the moment, and then they'll be sending him on his way. Tested last year, of course, the car was very different last year, and it gave Alan the opportunity to just see what it's like to drive a Formula 1 car here at Manicourt. Hasn't done a lot here at this track, but Les, bad news for Webber. He's out of the car, so they're still desperately trying to solve whatever problem it is in the back of the Minardi, and that is a shame for him. He's only completed 4 laps. His teammate, meanwhile, has completed 17 laps.
Well, a bit of balance there, because obviously it was the opposite way round yesterday. Alex was having the problems, and Mark was able to put some laps in. So Alex Young, on his 26th birthday, finally getting some time in the 1:18.464, and currently 19th. But Mark obviously not able to get out there at the moment.
Still no sign of the Arrows cars. Just to remind you, if you've joined us late, the Arrows car's not on track, but we're riding here with Michael Schumacher as we head down towards the hairpin. That great onboard view. Now, let's see. Watch the man who is 4 times world champion already, looking to wrap up his 5th title, and he's up on that first intermediate again. Now, that doesn't always indicate it's going to be a faster lap. But let's just keep an eye on that Ferrari. Smooth control, great change of direction, and stability under braking as well. It's got everything you want, this car.
But it is the change of the direction that looks so, from the outside anyway, it's so precise compared to some of the other cars. He really does change direction so quickly and so smoothly.
Yeah, again, look at that, through the Imola chicane, just using a bit of curb, tiny little bit of correction through the right hand at Chateau d'Eau. Now watch him down through the last chicane. He had the spin here yesterday. That's very nice indeed, absolutely perfect, not using as much curb as he did yesterday. This should go faster than last year's pole. Yes, it is, just a fraction faster than last year's pole set by his brother Ralph, and already we're going to see the times tumbling this afternoon. If they're already doing that at this time in the morning, then last year's pole record set by Ralf Schumacher in the Williams is going to be shattered.
Yeah, impressive indeed by Michael. He's only done really 2 hot runs, and both of them been very impressive, and put him back up to the top of the times, a 1:12.974, as you say, under last year's pole by his brother.
Now here's Felipe Massa. He uses a little bit more curb, but he keeps it tidy, and this is quite a good lap as well from the Brazilian, 14.5, so he goes 7th fastest with that lap, improving on the 2nd and 3rd sectors on his previous best. So that pushes Button back down to 8th place. Heidfeld, his teammate, Massa's teammate, now 9th. Then it's Panis in 10th. Fisichella is 11th. Irvine 12th. Then it's Trulli, Sato, Villeneuve, Salo, McNish. De La Rosa's down in 18th place. So he's quite a long way down the order at the moment in the Jaguar, having done just 10 laps.
Sad sight. Frentzen and Benaldi, no shows at the moment. And unfortunately, the future not looking too bright at the moment for the Arrows team. Here on Friday and Saturday, no running so far.
Just 2 minutes to go then in this first 45-minute session. Kimi Räikkönen looking to improve. He's 3rd fastest, however, already from a lap that he set some little time ago. He's only completed 7 laps, and it's interesting to note that McLaren and Ferrari really only completing very few laps in this session, and I think that is just an indicator of their knowledge of this track and how it changes so considerably with the change in temperature, that they could just as easily confuse themselves by being out at this time as actually learn anything beneficial. Räikkönen looking for a solid qualifying run. He's been on the 3rd row every time so far this season. Lots of unreliability has affected his chance to score points, and there we can just watch and ride with him into that 180-degree corner. Let's just watch him as he comes up towards the chicane. This is where the McLaren looked particularly good yesterday. It's been looking good all weekend. And again, very stable.
It's also been looking good out of this corner, not getting the, it seems, oversteer that a lot of the cars are getting coming out of here, able to get the power down very early. Notice especially with David Coulthard how quickly he was able to get out of Chateau d'Eau and get down to the bottom end of the circuit very quickly indeed, and the McLarens look very good out of there.
So across the line, 14.0 on that last lap for Räikkönen compared to 13.6, his previous best. And we were talking about Alex Young a moment ago. Well, he's done a 1:18.408, but that, with the times being improved up front, he's actually outside the 107%. Of course, this is not qualifying. It will be different come the session itself. Coulthard running a little bit wide here. But as I say, Young will be up against it today. And the best birthday present he will have, I think, Jonathan, is just to get into the race.
Yeah, he won't thank me for this. I went to his 18th birthday party, and he'd been in the gravel trap the day before, so I bought him a compass. So I shan't be sending him anything this weekend. But no, he's up against it. But I think he's got more tenacity than people give him credit. Know him quite well, and he really is going to give it his all, that's for sure. And I think, well, especially on his birthday, he'll want to qualify, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that he'll be attacking. Coulthard, meanwhile, comes around 14.487 for him, almost the same time that his teammate put in just a second ago. Now, checker flag comes out, the end of the first 45 minutes here at Manicourt. It's been fairly calm, no dramas really to talk about, no major offs, and I think just looking at the number of laps that some of the top teams have done, they're not too worried about it yet. They're waiting for the temperatures to climb, and they're waiting to put some decent work in. Well, I talked about no dramas. Of course, the commentators curse, and Jacques Villeneuve, just to prove me wrong.
We did it at the end of last session, didn't he?
Yeah, he likes that last chicane, doesn't he?
It does. At the end of the session, he likes to walk back, I think, so he can find a new little hole in the pit wall to get through. But that was rather impressive, actually.
That was a good flying lesson from Jacques Villeneuve. In fact, it was his teammate who was up in a helicopter yesterday. It was Olivier Panis having a look around the track, but Jacques getting into the flying himself there.
Yeah, I don't think he got quite the view. No chateaus involved.
No, that's right. Well, hopefully the car will be undamaged. We're just taking a look at the replay of Coulthard here. He was coming down into the hairpin, and he just had the wheel slightly over the edge, although that's slightly strange. Back end really swapping on him very, very quickly under braking there, so whether brake balance wasn't quite right. But no problem, nothing hit, and he's making his way back to the pits. So, first session completed. Jacques Villeneuve's made it back in. Perhaps just to explain his little moment over the chicane coming into the pits that time. Jock Clear on the left, that's his race engineer. These two working very, very closely together, as they have done ever since Jacques came to Formula One, when the two of them were at Williams. So Michael Schumacher fastest here. Rubens Barrichello second fastest, ahead of Raikkonen and Coulthard, the man we're looking at, fourth fastest. Then Massa popped up to fifth there towards the end, ahead of Montoya, Ralf Schumacher and Jenson Button. Heidfeld ninth, ahead of Panis. And then Fisichella, Irvine, Trulli, Sato, Villeneuve 15th, Salo in 16th place, ahead of McNish, De La Rosa, and on down the list, Young and Webber, and neither of the Arrows Formula One cars coming out. Bit of a mixture between the Bridgestones and the Michelin users.
Different picture to yesterday, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, because the Michelins were dominating on the Friday free practice, but as the temperatures climb, that might be a different story. Now, I gather that Flavio Briatore's been talking about things.
Yeah, evidently Flavio says that there's going to be a press conference this afternoon, 4:30, to announce his driver lineup, or at least Renault's driver lineup. And obviously that includes some of the people he's managing, but always interesting, and that could be very enlightening, certainly in terms of Jenson Button's future.
Yes, very. That's right. Jenson Button, will he stay at Renault or not? We think it highly unlikely. It looks like Alonso will be announced this afternoon to be joining Jarno Trulli. Trulli's ended up 13th fastest in that session this morning, ahead of Sato and Villeneuve, with the two Toyotas next up, and then the Jag of Pedro de la Rosa. So the Jaguar is not featuring quite as strongly in this first session, but there's still plenty of time to go. Now, it's just a half-hour gap, remember, between these two free practice sessions. If you have a problem, and we know that Mark Webber's had a problem, it doesn't give you very long to sort things out and make... So frantic activity will be going on down in the Minardi pit. It looks fairly calm in the McLaren pit, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, and compared to yesterday, not as much drama just generally, really. A lot of people going off, a lot of gravel being taken up by the cars. And, well, certainly this session, not quite... Well, the dramatic highlights that we had yesterday, for sure.
Let's just take a look back at what's been happening this morning.